Welcome to the Create What You Speak podcast. Join me as we have a real-life discussion on how to change your life by changing your thoughts. Remember, question everything, trust yourself, and find your truth. Welcome to the Create What You Speak podcast. My name is Sloan Fremont, and I'm your host. This is a show where we talk about changing your life by changing your thoughts. Every week, I bring you a new episode with different ways to look at your reality, different things to consider, and I talk through a lot of the experiences that I have and the things that I've discovered along the way. And we all know that our focus creates our reality. Even if it's the things we don't really realize that we're focusing on, they do create our reality. And I've talked a lot about that over the years. And recently I developed a course called the BS Method, the Better Stories Method. And this course teaches you how to tell a better story to yourself in 5 minutes or less. So this course is not some self-help bullshit, power of positive thinking, like fake course. This is real. This is the real deal. This is what I did to change my life. And that's what this course is for. It's for real people who want their lives to change. It's for people who want to really understand how to do this and actually want to apply it in their own lives. And I've developed a step-by-step system in this course that you can really rely on because everything is there for you. It's done. It's ready to go. And if you take the time, if you invest in yourself to do this, you'll see that this gets you, changing your story gets you to the next goals in your life. And when you use these techniques correctly, you'll finally free yourself from that grip, that vice grip of the trauma, of the self-judgment, of all the years of the stories that didn't and don't and will not serve you. They'll start to loosen their grip on you, and your life will be forever changed in a good way. And I know it because I did it and I lived it. So if you're interested in learning more, check out thebsmethod.com. On this week's show, we're going to talk about becoming friends with your emotions. And let me first tell you that this whole thought of, quote, becoming friends with your emotions, when someone first said this to me, I was like, no. This is another one of those bullshit things that somebody's trying to, the fake generic self-help kind of stuff. Somebody's trying to push on me, right? And I was like, no. And the interesting thing though is when I got out of my own way and I changed my story about it and I stopped letting my ego control me and I actually did an experiment with this and put it into practice, I was completely shocked at the results that I got. I was shocked at what I was able to see that had been blocking me. And then I was shocked at how in doing this, it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Becoming friends with my emotions wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. And I think that's kind of what stopped me from the beginning, or that's what made me think it was a bullshit kind of thing to do. Because I deep down felt like it was going to be hard. And it wasn't. So I want to talk to you about that this week. I want to just share some things that I learned. I want to talk about my experiences that I've been through recently that where I tested this. And at the end, I've got some thoughts, some suggestions, some things that you can try, you can consider, you can apply in your own life and see how that works for you. So our emotions are, I feel like we spend a lot of our life fighting our emotions, right? We're given emotions for a reason. Our emotions are our inner compass, our guidance system, right? Our emotions are there to tell us something that either we're not recognizing, we're not willing to look at, we're not able to see for whatever reason. And I think most of us are taught to treat our emotions as the enemy. We're taught to treat the emotions as bad. We're taught that don't show emotions, right? Especially if you're a guy, don't show emotion, right? Guys don't have emotions. Guys shouldn't cry. Guys shouldn't, this or that, right? And for girls, it's don't be so emotional, right? Don't show your emotions so much, right? Just tone it down a little bit. You don't need to get so excited, or, you don't need to really express yourself in that way. And so I think for humans, emotions are confusing because they're hard to understand how to be with, because most people are telling us not to be with them. But our emotions aren't going to go away. Our emotions are part of being a human. That's one of the things that makes us human, right? Is having emotions, having that range of emotions that we go through. And so ignoring them and running from them are not useful things to do. They're not valuable skills to continue to practice, because we can't outrun our emotions. They're always going to be there. They're always going to be there, and they're there for a reason. And what I've discovered is that becoming friends with those emotions, and instead of treating them as the enemy or trying to escape them or run from them or push them away or hide or pretend they're not there, actually feeling the emotions and stopping for a minute. And what it felt like to me was to actually walk through the emotions instead of letting the emotion and what comes right before having the experience of an emotion. Like, to me, that's always felt like a wall that blocked me. And so I would bounce off that wall, and because I didn't want to feel the emotion, right? The emotion of sadness would start to come up, and it would come up, and boop, nope, I'm going to bounce off the wall and I'm going to go the other way so I don't have to feel that sadness. Or the emotion of fear or regret or unhappiness or whatever it was going to come up, and I didn't want to have any part of it. So I was going to run away from it, and I was going to do all these things to get me away from these emotions, right? I was going to ignore them, pretend they weren't there, try to find the positive in everything, right? I've talked about that, about really that trap of the law of attraction is not feeling all of your emotions, which I think I did a whole episode on that a while back, because that's not good. We can no longer suppress our emotions as a human race, as people, as beings. We have to be able to feel these emotions and process them in a meaningful and beneficial way. And I'm not talking about wild swings of emotions and going crazy. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, as a legit human, learning how to work with our emotions, pair up with our emotions, accept our emotions, actually accept them, and let them guide us in the way that they're trying to do. And what I've found when I was, over the past couple months, I've done so much work on so many things that seem independent, but as I was thinking about them today, they all kind of fit together. But the other piece of emotions that came up for me was that it's like when I was able to feel my emotions and actually experience them, it was like I was recognizing my own lies about what I had been telling myself about these emotions. Like, I had been lying to myself, thinking it was going to be too hard to feel these emotions, or too hard to face these emotions, or I was telling myself that you don't have to recognize or feel these emotions, right? Just all these lies that I told myself over the years as ways to cope with dealing with emotions. And again, I think a lot of that comes from the way society presents emotions to us from when we're kids, right? Don't feel your emotions, or you're feeling your emotions too much, so you better stop. And that's a confusing message. And most of us grew up with that confusing message. And so I had this experience this week about this. And this is one of the tests that I did with this, with actually becoming friends with my emotions, was, so I've talked about before on here that I invented something, and I'm still going through a lot of different things with it, but when it's all said and done, I'll have 4 patents on this invention. And when you invent something, there's the patent office, and it goes through this whole process, and it's really fucking expensive. But once your patent is issued, the patent office keeps a registry. And so there's companies that are looking for new products to put out, or, to invest in. And so they'll contact you if they're interested in what your invention is, right? And they can get all the information from your patent that's filed, because the patent includes, everything about your invention, the description, the image, all that kind of stuff. And so from time to time, I would get these letters from these companies, and I would always just assume that they were a scam. Just assume they were a scam. That was the story I told myself. And so recently I was thinking more about this, about what I wanted to do with this invention. How do I want to market it? Do I want to market it? Did I just invent something to tell everybody that I invented something and then never actually do anything with it? And I'm like, no, that definitely wasn't the case. So I had gotten another letter from a company interested in investing in the product. And as I was thinking through that, I was thinking, okay, I say that I want to do this, but do I really want to? Because I keep finding excuses for why I don't want to reach out to these companies, or why I'm just, it's just a scam and I dismiss it, right? And so I decided to actually reach out to this company. And I did. We had a conversation. They're really interested in it. I don't know where this is going to go. But as I was going through this and I was having these conversations and we were working, I had to send him a lot of things, and we had several conversations. I was finding myself, I was trying to find an out the whole time. I was trying to find an excuse for why it wasn't going to work, or find some flaw in the person I was talking to point to, yep, see, it's a scam, right? All of these stories coming up, all of these emotions coming up about it. And so I'm, again, thinking through this, what's really going on here? Because the emotions that were coming up were these feelings of worried about what strangers are going to think, and having this fear of what strangers are going to think, and also having the fear of success. What does that mean if this is successful for my life? Even though I say I want the success, what does it actually mean if it happens? And in the past, when I would have these emotions, these feelings of, what are people going to think? And the feeling of being exposed, right? Being on the stage naked kind of thing, right? Here I invented this thing, I created it, and I spent all this time and money on it, and now I'm putting it out to the world. And what if the world doesn't accept it, right? What if they ridicule me or laugh at me, or I don't know, whatever, who knows what they might do. They, right? They in quotes, because who's they anyway, right? Strangers. I mean, I don't know these people. So why do I care? Why do I care what they think about me or what they think about what I invented? But I do. And so I'm feeling these emotions of wanting to escape, feeling, vulnerable, feeling very much exposed, and feeling very much if people give me negative reviews, how am I going to handle that? And in the past, when I had these kinds of feelings or thoughts, or those uncomfortable emotions, I'm just not even necessarily with this would be anything in my life. When I had those uncomfortable emotions, what it often felt like to me was that meant stop. Stop whatever you're doing. Something's wrong. You're wrong, the other person's wrong, it's a scam, it's a whatever, don't go any further. And this time, I challenged it. I challenged it within myself. Becoming friends with this emotion of the fear, of the vulnerability, all of this, I decided, instead of to let that be a wall that stops me, I decided to go through the emotion, go on the other side of it, and see what it felt like. Because in the past, that emotion would have stopped me from proceeding. I would have just said, no, I'm not going to do this, and we're done. And then sat there and been pissed off that I was still in the same place I was, prior. So I actually decided to go through the emotions of this. It was primarily this fear of success, but also this vulnerability. And so as I'm navigating this, because this is new for me, right? It's new to navigate through an emotion that in the past would have scared me, caused me to feel like I should stop, been really fucking uncomfortable, to navigate through that instead of running from it was new. And so I'm continuing to pursue this with this company, right? Instead of just stopping. And I'm talking to the guy, and we're having a good conversation, and I feel actually good about what he's saying, and he's giving me a lot of good information. He's telling me their process and how it all works, and I get done with that conversation, and I'm still a little nervous, but I'm actually letting myself get excited about it. I'm actually letting other emotions come in rather than this fear of success or this vulnerability, this fear of vulnerability. And I'm feeling what that feels like. I'm experiencing that, right? I'm instead of assuming the worst and expecting the worst, I'm actually letting myself feel some positivity about this. And I'm like, okay. And so as I'm going forward each day, right, and these emotions are coming up about this, these old groove, these worn patterns of fear and vulnerability coming up. Instead of letting those play out, I'm going through. I don't know how else to describe it. It's almost like if you picture like on a cartoon, like a ghost, and like the cartoon character walks through the ghost. Like that's the emotion is the ghost in my mind. Like that's how it feels to me. It's this hovering body of energy around me that feels engulfing. It feels like it's a cement blanket over the top of me. But in reality, it's this clear, see-through, energetic material that isn't as restrictive or as confining as it feels. And if I just open up just a little to it and I walk through it just a little bit, I can start to see that I can get on the other side, that I don't have to hide from it or run from it anymore, or I don't have to have it mean stop. I can still not be 100% certain about it, but I can still go forward and go through it. And that is life-changing. That felt to me like, okay, so I didn't die when I did this. Okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can actually do this. And I think it's so important to try this in your own life. Like recognize those places where your emotions are getting you to stop or getting you to not do something or getting you to, not want to move forward out of fear, out of, rejection, out of vulnerability, whatever it is, and actually test it out like I did. Test it out to just try to work through moving past the emotion that's stopping you and see what's on the other side. And of course, I'm not talking, I'm talking about something that you want in life, right? Something that you want, but you feel like you keep holding yourself back. I'm not talking about a terrible situation or anything like that. I'm talking about something that you're thinking about right now that you feel held back in, or you feel like you're not able to move forward in. And becoming friends with your emotions may be a way to get through that. It may be a way for you to stop the stories and get your stop believing your own lies, really. Like I had said earlier, like I stopped believing my own lies and I stopped fighting my own emotions. I just stopped letting myself like go through these sharp ups and downs of the emotions about it, and going through the emotion, becoming friends with the emotion and going through it then feels more even. It feels more settled. It feels more like, smoother, I guess I would say. And in doing that, it's like it helps. What's the word I'm trying to say here? It's like it helps you get to the other side and recognize that it wasn't so bad, that you didn't have to keep fighting these emotions, right? I don't have to keep doing this. Like I can actually move through it and still live to tell the tale and actually move closer to what it is that I want. And so this becoming friends with our emotions it's not easy, but it's doable. It's definitely doable. And I've got just some notes here that I wrote down of what, some of the things that helped me think through this. So the first one was that our emotions don't have to mean stop, whatever it is that we're working towards. If you really want something, but the fear is coming up and you're not letting yourself have it, or the doubt or the whatever, just because you're having that emotion doesn't mean you have to stop. It can be worked through. You can go through it and come out the other side. When we're friends with our emotions, it's like we're pairing up with them. And then when the feeling comes up again, like when the emotion comes up again, you know what to do with it, I guess, is the best way I can explain it. Like you're familiar with that. You've identified it. You can recognize it. And so when you're friends with your emotions and you start to recognize those things, and then you almost like pair up with the emotion, like, okay, I know how to work with you now, right? It's like having a coworker or somebody that you don't really get along with, but you learn how to navigate them, right? It's the same with the emotion that maybe you don't want. You don't want the emotion, but it's there to tell you something. So let's learn how to work with it and working in tandem with the emotion instead of that running from it or fighting it or trying to get it to stop. We can step through that and actually become friends with the emotion. As cheap and generic as that sounds, that's the only way I can describe it. It actually happens in that way. At least it did for me, where I now know how to manage those emotions, that fear, that vulnerability. I know I can step through it. I've done it. I moved forward a little bit further. I didn't go like, from 0 to 100. I went from like 0 to 10. Okay, I can do this. And then it was like 10 to 20, right? It was these smaller steps moving forward. And when we're friends with our emotions, we're really breaking apart these old ways, these old behaviors, and really being okay with that. Like, I was at a point with this, and I'm sure you have things in your life where you're like, I just can't keep doing this anymore with myself, right? I can't keep wanting this thing, but then not letting the thing come in because of my own fears or my own whatever. So becoming friends with your emotion, it's a pattern interrupter for ourselves. It's like we're interrupting our own patterns, and then we get out of our own head about it, and we're able to break those old mental, a lot of the mental stories, but also the mental, it's like when it just happens out of habit, right? You don't even really realize it. It's just happening. And when we're friends with our emotions, it helps us regulate our emotions much better. And we feel more even, more stable. That's one thing I'm really noticing with this, is like I was talking about the sharp ups and downs with the emotions. When I'm actually like friending my emotions, and I'm not trying to fight them off or look at them as the enemy, and I go through it with the emotion, whatever it is, then I know how to deal with the emotion later. Then my emotions are regulated more because we're not at war. We're not at war fighting each other. We're able to coexist in the same body, even if we don't necessarily like the emotion at the time. I can still coexist in my body with those emotions and not feel like I have to beat the emotion to death and get it away from me, right? It's not going to happen. That just isn't what emotions do, unless you're dead. That's pretty much the only way the emotions are going to go away. So, really being able to regulate our emotions and find that emotional stability, I think is a huge benefit of, becoming friends with your emotions. And then lastly, an unexpected, I would say, benefit of this as well is really developing this inner confidence within ourselves, because when you're friends with your emotions and your emotions are stable and you're more on that even keel, your needs are met. The drive isn't there to protect you from the emotion that maybe you were trying to protect yourself from in the past. You've identified the emotion, you understand why it's there, you know what it's telling you, you've walked through it, right? You've become friends with it, you understand when it comes up again, how to work with it. And when that happens, there's this inner confidence that develops, because we're learning how to meet our own needs. We're learning how to self-regulate our emotions. We're learning how to regulate our own body. We're not at this constant internal war within ourselves. And the drive isn't there anymore to have to protect ourselves. And that protection that we try to do when we run away from our emotions is very draining. It's very time consuming. It's draining. It causes like preoccupation of whatever you're feeling inside, right? And you're filtering your life through that lens of whatever that emotion is that you're trying to run from or hide from, right? That anxiety about that, or that fear or whatever it is projected out onto everything else in your life. So really being able to, it's this inner confidence, this inner satisfaction, like this inner, I'm happy to be me kind of thing going on. And if that's radical for you, as it was for me prior to experiencing it, I definitely think that you should experiment with this, because that would be a good way to sum up how I feel these days. I'm happy to be me. And I can tell you, in my 43 years, I don't think I've ever said that before. So that's it for this week on the topic of becoming friends with your emotions. I would love to know what you think of this. If you have thoughts, if you have comments, my social media is in the show notes below. I primarily spend most of my social media time on Gab, Minds, and Telegram. I did also start an Odyssey channel. I'm on BitChute also. So many places. They're all in the show notes. So be sure and check that out. Also, I do have a Gab group. If you'd like to join the group, we can chat more. I do post every day, little quick tidbits to kind of help start your day. So check that out. Again, links are in the show notes. All right. Well, thanks for listening this week. That's it. I will talk to you next week. Remember, question everything, trust yourself, and find your truth.